Return of the Jedi has always been a top-tier Star Wars film for me. It always stuck with me, which is why it surprised me that it's often considered the least best of the original trilogy. I chose it for my first Star Wars movie review for this reason. People have sung the praises of A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back plenty, and while I will review those movies, as I still do have my own commentary to offer and I love them just as much, Return of the Jedi isn't as universally lauded. So there's a bit more of an opportunity for me to provide some of my own unique commentary. The entire original Star Wars trilogy is a masterpiece, but while Empire Strikes Back is still the best, Return of the Jedi is even better than A New Hope, and a perfect ending to the trilogy. It does an amazing job developing its characters to new heights and further fleshing them out. Luke Skywalker is in his prime here, more so than any other point in the trilogy, and his arc has him take his final steps of becoming a Jedi Knight in the most subversive yet poignant way possible. Darth Vader remains a terrifying and imposing villain, but we see completely new sides of him that, while hinted at before, are fully realized here. The Emperor is so creepy and deliciously evil, making him a very enjoyable yet frightening villain, and one of the best in all of Star Wars. The supporting characters all get great material, and there's even some interesting character development for Han Solo that makes you rethink his character. Return of the Jedi continues to push the envelope with special effects, introduce new awesome sci-fi elements, and has absolutely incredible action sequences. And finally, it brings an emotionally impactful and epic end to one of the greatest trilogies of all time. Return of the Jedi has my favorite depiction of Luke Skywalker, and Mark Hamill perhaps gives his best performance out of the trilogy. He's still the same person we know and love from the previous movies, the idealistic, hopeful, loyal, and passionate hero, but he's clearly grown from his experiences in Empire Strikes Back. In that film, Luke recklessly goes to save his friends when he's not prepared, disobeying the wisdom of his masters. He almost dies fighting Darth Vader, and instead of actually saving his friends, they have to save him. One of the things the opening act of this film does masterfully is showcase how much Luke has grown since the previous movie. His entrance is badass. Just from the visuals, you can tell how much more powerful and confident he's become. He's calm, collected, and calculating. In the mission to save Han Solo, he has almost complete control over his emotions. His plan is also very much in the spirit of the Jedi way. It seems ridiculously complex and nonsensical from an outside perspective, but it makes much more sense when you realize that he's going out of his way to not have to kill everyone in that palace. Because that's what Jedi do, negotiate, not kill, unless absolutely necessary. He first tries to use the droids as bargaining chips, but Jabba refuses. If Jabba had taken them, he likely would have gotten Lando's help to sneak the droids out, thus losing nothing. Then he sneaks someone in to free Han Solo discreetly, but that doesn't work either, so Luke has to come in and take care of business himself. It's also likely that Luke used precognition, an ability that especially powerful Force users tend to have, and knew about the Sarlacc pit as he was raised on Tatooine, a planet controlled by the Hutts. However, Luke is still not perfect, and in fact exhibits some of the violent and arrogant nature of his father Darth Vader.
It's your choice, but I warn you not to underestimate my power.
You underestimate the power of the dark side.
We also see how Luke's Jedi skills have evolved, taking on all of Jabba's minions on the sail barge by himself. Luke choosing to save Han Solo before resuming his Jedi training with Yoda is also consistent with Luke's deep loyalty to his friends, and after the mission is completed, he fulfills his promise to his masters. However, when he arrives, Yoda is already dying. But before his death, he imparts wisdom into Luke. He teaches him that death is a natural part of life and the way of the Force. The Jedi believe that death isn't the end, but rather you rejoin the Force, thus participating in the symbiotic relationship between every life form in the Force that sustains the entire galaxy. Yoda also informs Luke that he doesn't require any more training, as he has already learned everything that Yoda was trying to teach him. His training in Empire Strikes Back wasn't about being good with a lightsaber, it was about Luke believing in himself, learning to be patient, focused, and at peace. And Luke proved that he was capable of all of that in his mission to free Han Solo. But Luke still has one final test, to face Darth Vader, his father. Yoda warns him not to give in to his dark side emotions, to not underestimate the Emperor, and reveals that he has a sibling, who Luke, through his conversation with Obi-Wan, realizes is Leia. Obi-Wan also reinforces Yoda's instruction that in order to complete his Jedi training, he must face Vader. George Lucas says, He knows that a confrontation is brewing between Luke and his father. Ben hopes that Luke will either save his father or kill him, because whatever extra powers Luke's got in his lineage, he is the one person that can probably fight his father and win. Facing Vader will be a true test of whether Luke can truly overcome his demons and resist the dark side. Luke in the first act of the movie is still not perfect. He still has a dark side, even more so than before. If Luke can face Vader, his rival who makes him feel so much anger and disappointment, even if he still may have compassion for him, and overcome that, then he will prove himself as a Jedi Knight. But there is also the matter of whether Luke can truly save Vader, or if he'll be forced to kill him. Luke has not only fully accepted that Vader is his father, but he also believes in his father. He knows that there is good left in Vader, because their last exchange at the end of Empire Strikes Back was very telling.
Son, come with me.
He felt that there was actually some fatherly affection in Vader. But Obi-Wan doesn't believe it, and can you really blame him? Obi-Wan has so much more of a grasp on how far Anakin has fallen, and he's tried himself to bring him back, only to be met with a continued reassurance that Vader is all that's left. Even when it seemed there was some of Anakin left, those moments were fleeting, and he always doubled down on being Vader. This is where Luke's hope, idealism, and endless compassion comes in. It's also important to emphasize that Luke was the only one who could ever truly reach Vader. Vader is too consumed by his hatred of everything and everyone from his past, while Luke represents the future. For someone who only knows Vader as the monster he is, to still believe in him is an opinion he simply cannot ignore. It also partially stems from his inability to give up on the idea of his father. To find out that the person who made him want to become a Jedi, the man he thought was an amazing hero, is actually one of the most cruel and evil men in the galaxy, was heartbreaking to Luke. It destroyed him. He has to believe his father is still in there somewhere. And on some level, perhaps Luke is even glad that his father isn't actually dead. While you could argue that Luke is emotionally clouded, at the end of the day, compassion is essential to being a Jedi, and that is a primary reason that Luke wants to save his father. Despite everything Vader has done to him and the people he cares about, he still has compassion for him. Vader is responsible for the deaths of his uncle and aunt, Obi-Wan, his friend Biggs, and many other rebels that he came to know and worked with. He tortured Han Solo and Princess Leia, froze Han, not knowing or caring if he'd live or die, and engaged him in a deadly lightsaber duel where he cut off his hand. But despite all of those reasons to hate his father and want revenge, Luke still chooses to love him, to have compassion for him, to view him as a human being. And if that is not inspiring, if that doesn't make you want to be a better person, I don't know what could. I'm going to begin to talk about Vader now, but that doesn't mean this section about Luke is over. Luke and Vader's arcs are so intertwined at this point that it's basically impossible to do them separately without being repetitive. So I'm going to start talking about Vader and then continue with both of their arcs. Darth Vader is my favorite character of all time, and the character work done for him in this film is amazing. Vader in the previous two films is a cold, terrifying, calculating, bold, mysterious, ruthless, powerful, and badass villain who owns every scene he's in. Darth Vader thrives in his role as the Empire's dragon, the brutal warrior enforcer on the front lines that gets the job done. If the Emperor is Satan, Vader is the Grim Reaper. He loves the power of the dark side, and even makes sadistic jokes about the people he kills. He takes pleasure in lording his power over others.
We would be honored if you would join us.
And dominates the films like a nigh unstoppable force of nature. Darth Vader is a monster. In Empire Strikes Back, Vader is on a conquest to find his son, with the ultimate goal of turning him to the dark side so he can become his apprentice. But at the very end, we take a peek behind his cold mask for the first time. We see that Vader is perhaps hurt and even sad because his son rejects him, showing that even if he'll never admit it, there's more to his mission than just wanting a Sith apprentice. This perfectly sets up his arc in Return of the Jedi. When we first meet Vader in this film, we're shown that he is still the same ruthless villain we know and love.
Perhaps I can find new ways to motivate them.
His entrance is grand, the nerve-wracked face of Moff Gideon awaiting Vader's descent down the ramp of his shuttle, The camera angle is extremely low, emphasizing Vader's power. Vader also retains the bulky, imposing suit from Empire Strikes Back that is still Vader's best live-action appearance, and Richard Marquand's direction always perfectly emphasizes his physical prowess. But as the film continues, his mask is gradually pulled back. When our heroes try to sneak on Endor using an Imperial shuttle, Vader can sense his son. He chooses to deliberately disobey the Emperor to inform him of Luke's presence, choosing Luke over the Emperor. But Vader still continues to deny that the things going on between him and his son are anything other than Sith machinations. That he's searching for Luke for more than just the aspiration of using him to help to kill the Emperor. Both the development of Luke and Vader in the first and second acts all culminate in the third act confrontation between them, starting with a reunion on Endor. This is not only one of my favorite scenes in Star Wars, but one of my favorite scenes of all time. Luke is once again calm and calculating, keeping his emotions at ease, while still using them to his advantage. He's compassionate but firm. He tries his best to reach Anakin. He reminds Vader of the man he used to be.
That name no longer has any meaning for me.
Luke continues to tell him that he sees through him and knows that there is good in him. Vader changes the subject to talk about Luke's lightsaber and how powerful he's become. Vader also activates Luke's lightsaber to remind him that he has complete control of the situation, that he could easily kill him if he wanted. It's a defense mechanism against his son's armor-piercing words. This reinforces an important facet of Vader's character. He's reserved. Vader is cold, and he uses this to hide his vulnerable feelings. Vader is so terrifying because we only ever see him cold, calm, collected, or angry. And whenever he is angry, it's never in a vulnerable sense, but in a way that makes him feel even more powerful and threatening. He never loses control. He wields his anger like a blunt weapon in a calculating, commanding manner. So when Vader's mad, it's intimidating.
You have failed me for the last time, Admiral.
Because of how cold Vader is, he hardly feels human, and this was very much an intentional choice for the character. James Earl Jones was even directed to deliver his lines as if Vader had, quote, limited emotional range. Vader being more machine than man isn't just referencing his suit. Vader only allows himself to be cold or angry because it makes him feel powerful and fuels his ego. When you never allow yourself to feel or express any sort of vulnerability, you feel invincible. Almost everyone in the galaxy either respects or fears Darth Vader. Everyone except the Emperor is beneath him, and he loves it. He revels in it. Vader's ego prevents him from admitting any of his vulnerable feelings. This is why he will murder anybody who sees his real face or hears his real name, because nobody in the galaxy is allowed to know that he's Anakin, that he's human. They must know him as Darth Vader, the invincible, monstrous Dark Lord of the Sith. But this doesn't mean that Vader doesn't have any vulnerability. Deep down, he feels guilt and self-loathing, but he represses it and continues to stroke his ego through a cold attitude and threatening display of his power. Vader solemnly admits that Obi-Wan once saw the good in him too, but doubles down on the power of the dark side. He's too addicted to it to let go of it now. Luke tells him that if he continues on this path, Vader will be forced to kill him.
If that is your destiny.
Vader acts as if he can coldly kill Luke if he needed to, as if it's just another day on the job, as if he's just one of the other thousands of Jedi he's slain in cold blood. He pretends that the only reason Luke is alive is to use him as a tool, but Luke knows it isn't true. Luke eventually pulls enough strings to get Vader to admit something.
It is too late for me, son.
Only for Vader to then immediately regress once again, referring to the dark side as the true nature of the Force.
Then my father is truly dead.
This last shot of Vader having a solemn, quiet moment to himself as he contemplates everything is so powerful in its subtlety and composition. There's just something so impactful about seeing Vader, a person who would do horribly evil things without a moment's hesitation, ruminate. I also love the set design for this scene. The way Vader and Luke are caged in, emphasizing how both of the characters are trapped, and the personal relationship between the two. There is also a contrast between the green life of Endor and the gray mechanical platform they're on. Lively environments of green and brown are almost always the surroundings of the heroes. The only time where they do settle in a cold environment, Hoth, and this is when they are in a desperate position and lose to the Empire. The villains live in a cold, mechanical world of gray, black, and sometimes red. Red is a color traditionally associated with evil in mythology, and often indicates a poisonous animal in nature. The rebellion is fighting for the Force to return to its natural balanced state by destroying the Empire and the Sith that mechanically forged it that they used to bend the galaxy and the Force to their will, thus going against the natural order. Here we see Luke leave the world of color and life and enter the Empire's domain. However, at the end of the scene, Vader stares out into the wilderness, the first time he's taken a personal look at the light side of the Force in decades. When Luke meets the Emperor, he remains collected, and tries to appear unfazed, even if he is actually intimidated by him. The Emperor manages to manipulate Luke into lashing out in anger by revealing his plan to destroy the rebellion and his friends, igniting a battle with Vader. The lightsaber duel between Vader and Luke is ferocious, energetic, and fueled beautifully by the character work. As they fight, Luke decides not to give in to his anger and only fight defensively, like a Jedi. Vader fights aggressively, like a Sith, and maintains his cold demeanor by denying the conflict within him, even though Luke can clearly see it. Vader continues to toy with and manipulate Luke into joining the dark side, sadistically lording the leverage he has over him due to his feelings for his friends, and through telepathy, finds out about his daughter Leia. He gloats about Obi-Wan's failure, and goes for the jugular by saying he will try to turn Leia to the dark side if Luke refuses. This immediately sends Luke into a spiral of rage. Vader is both not at peak strength due to his internal conflict, and also doesn't want to kill Luke, but Luke is out for the kill here, and that, along with the power boost given by the dark side, is how Luke triumphs in battle. Vader goes from slaying Jedi Masters with ease, to being bested by his son, who, while naturally incredibly powerful, has only a year's worth of training, a testament to how great the conflict is within the cyborg. As the Emperor taunts him to finish the job, Luke sees how he's becoming his father. Luke cutting off Vader's hand parallels Vader doing so to Luke in Empire. The set is also great visual storytelling. Here, Luke is at his lowest, and thus the staging puts him next to two pits in the elevator, which has a splotch of red color on it. Both of these elements represent a symbolic fall towards hell. Luke's black costume being the same color as Vader in the Emperor's wardrobe also cements in the audience's mind that he could end up like them. However, Luke refuses. He has the strength to forgive, to let go of his anger, and to choose to have compassion for his father, even if he's a monster. And thus, Luke completes his journey as a Jedi Knight. The Emperor uses Force Lightning to shock Luke, slowly killing him and taking pleasure in doing so. The wounded Vader slowly walks towards the Emperor, watching as his son is being tortured. Luke begs for his father's help, as he is torn apart by conflict. Vader is left with a choice: stay a Sith, continue serving the Empire, stroking his ego through his cold badass persona and displays of power, continuing to hold on to that hatred and rage that has defined him for 23 years, or becoming a Jedi again, letting go of that hatred, choosing to be compassionate and selfless, choosing the life of his son, the son that chose to spare him, the son that loves him despite everything he did, his wife's son, over his own. Vader makes his choice. Vader lets go of the dark side, and Anakin, the Jedi, returns through his own selfless, compassionate love for his son. Anakin saves the day by destroying the Sith, redeeming himself, and bringing balance to the Force. And this phenomenal scene ends beautifully, with Luke pulling his father away from the reactor shaft and comforting him, having a silent, tender moment together. Something that needs to be applauded is just how much emotion you can see in Vader in all of these scenes. It's all done through cinematography, David Prowse's incredible performance, and James Earl Jones' excellent voice acting. Anakin's death scene is truly heart-wrenching, as is Sebastian Shaw's performance as the unmasked Anakin. We see Luke struggling and putting everything he has into helping Anakin to his ship. When he finally barely makes it, Anakin has something to ask Luke.
Luke, help me take this mask off.
We see Anakin has overcome himself and the Sith's desire for eternal life and power over death. Anakin finally admits that he cannot stop death, and accepts it as a natural course of life, thus fully embracing the Jedi way. This moment is made even more impactful when one becomes familiar with the lore, and thus the true scope of Vader's power. The 2015 canon Vader comics confirm Vader's suit shutting down does not mean that he is a done deal. He can survive using the dark side alone. This is shown when Silo, the person who created his suit, turns it off, but Vader, fueled by the power of the dark side, manages to take control of his body and kill him. Vader, here, could use the power of the dark side to save his life again. But he's not Vader anymore. He's Anakin. Anakin and Luke share a tender moment before he tells him to save himself and leave him behind. Luke refuses. Not only does Luke's endless compassion shine through, but Anakin's. Anakin is grateful to Luke for pulling him out of the dark side, for believing in him and loving him. And that is all that Anakin needed. Anakin has fulfilled his purpose. He is content stopping the horrible empire he was critical in creating and sustaining, and submitting to the consequences of what he's done by giving up his life. He also wants his children to remember him for the good man that he once was, and not the monstrous Sith Lord. And those are his final words before he embraces his death, but not before hearing the words that he wanted to hear his whole life.
I won't leave you.
And with that, Anakin Skywalker, the son of the Force himself, becomes one with his father. And Luke takes a moment to mourn for his father, crying. Vader was a pure monster in the previous two films, and yet this film manages to successfully make his death heartbreaking, and his character legitimately sympathetic in the span of one movie. What an accomplishment, and what a masterpiece. Upon arriving back on Endor, Luke gives a proper Jedi funeral to Anakin. Luke is the only one in the entire galaxy who would ever go to the funeral of Darth Vader. Luke mourns his father before letting him go, accepting that he has become one with the Force, before joining and embracing his friends, full of joy and happiness as they have won the war and freed the galaxy. Luke takes a brief departure from the party to see the Force ghosts of Obi-Wan, Yoda, and his father Anakin appear. Anakin is not gone forever, and happily watches Luke and his friends celebrate their victory. What a way to end the original Star Wars trilogy. There is debate about whether Darth Vader was truly redeemed. The answer relies on a nuanced discussion of redemption and its meaning. George Lucas had this to say: Anakin can't be redeemed for all the pain and suffering he's caused. He doesn't right the wrongs, but he stops the horror. The end of the saga is simply Anakin saying, I care about this person, regardless of what it means to me. I will throw away everything that I have, everything that I've grown to love, primarily the Emperor, and throw away my life to save this person. And I'm doing this because he has faith in me, loves me despite all the horrible things I've done. I broke his mother's heart, but he still cares about me, and I can't let that die. Vader wasn't redeemed in the sense that he made up for all of the things that he did, because how could he? For 23 years, he was a monstrous Sith Lord, and the willing right hand of a tyrannical empire. He is responsible for millions of deaths, and didn't even hesitate to kill innocent civilians. Vader can't just put a band-aid on all that because he killed the Emperor and saved Luke. But he is redeemed in the sense of the action of saving or being saved from sin, error, or evil. He's redeemed in that he changes as a person, his soul purged of evil. He chose to be driven by compassion rather than greed. He does the right thing for all the right reasons. And in that sense, yes, Darth Vader was redeemed.